Hey guys, Mike with Chat Sports Online again. Back on this 56 this morning. Past couple of days, I've been working on the cross member and the upper arm mounts that go on this in the shop, so didn't have a lot to show you on that, but got some things to show you this morning. First things are these mounts. This is the upper control arm mount. Mounts on there like that. I think we might have had this sitting on here before. Goes right there where those holes are. Production version will not have those two center holes because they're not going to be needed. That's there, holes there. And the control arm mounts like the factory. So here is a factory cross member, okay? Control arm mounts on either side. And this hole right here. It's got a long bolt that goes through there. It's got a flat spot on one side that lines with that groove, the factory bolt. So, can't use the factory bolt. And by the way, here's a factory upper arm for you guys that haven't seen Crown Vic stuff. Cross member, Crown Vic, factory cross member, upper arm, lower arm, and this is my narrow cross member. This was just tacked together so I could test fit it in here. A lot of you guys are probably saying, well, why can't you just narrow a factory cross member? Okay. Well, the problem is if you do that, you got to move those motor mounts. You got to keep those motor mounts the same distance. So you'd have to shorten it somewhere out here or out here, and leave that distance in the middle the same, okay? The other thing is, guys say, well, why don't I just narrow mine 6 inches or 7 inches or whatever? It makes whatever it needs to be where I need it, okay? Because you can't just go narrowing a cross member to any width you want. You have to have a rack that matches the width. And by that, I mean the pivot point on the rack, okay? Let's find a rack. Here's the old Crown Vic rack in the junk pile. You see where that's been at? There's a pivot, a ball in there like a U-joint, okay? And there's one in that end, okay? That pivot point from that side to that side has to be the right distance to work with the cross member. So you're saying, right distance for what? What do you mean? Okay, well, I'll show you what I mean. Okay, we're looking at this cross member from the back, okay? But if you look at it from the front, the back doesn't matter, okay? You got your lower control arm mount here, your upper control arm mount right there, okay? Now just imagine a line from there right up to there, okay? When that rack is mounted on there, that pivot on that rack has to fall in that line right there. Has to be in that line. If it's not in that line, as the suspension cycles up and down, the toe will change, okay? Now, on a truck that's just going down the road, it's not going to change a lot, but when you hit bumps, it's going to change. It's called bump steer, okay? Now, just imagine how much it's going to change on a bag truck, going from laid out all the way to all the way up. Yeah, it's going to change a lot. So you can't just use any rack you want, okay? A lot of guys say, well, I use one that works fine. No, you might have just gotten it close, okay? So you don't have to notice it, you don't notice it much. But basically, you have to use the correct rack. So that's why this rack, this cross member, uses a Lincoln Mark 8 rack, a 1996 Lincoln Mark 8 rack, because that distance from there to there is the same as the Lincoln Mark 8 rack, and the Crown Vic tie rod ends fit the Lincoln rack, okay? So that makes it a lot easier because you can use all your Crown Vic stuff. Plus the Lincoln Mark 8 rack has 5/8 and 9/16 fittings, and they're the same fittings as on like the Fox body rack and the Mustang 2 rack, I think. I know they're 5/8 and 9/16, and Speedway and Amazon, everybody sells fittings to convert those to 6AN. So that makes it easy to make power steering hoses for it. And the splines on the Mark 8 rack are 3/4 36 spline, just like the steering column on most of these old Fords. So to hook that up, you only need a couple of 3/4 36 spline to 3/4 double D U-joints, 2 of those, and then you take a double D slip shaft, put in the middle between those, and you have the safety of the double D with a slip shaft in case you have a wreck, and it's easy to hook up on both ends. Okay, so this morning I'm going to pull some bolts out of that right there, and I'm going to test fit these pieces real quick. Once I test fit that, I know it's going to fit. Then I'll take it back in the shop and weld it up, put in all the bracing and the plates and the rack mount for the front of it. Okay, let's try that. While I'm in the middle of bolting this up, got all the bolts out, I ran into an issue here, and that is the washers that I got will not fit up against there. I'm going to have some small diameter washers. Basically, these holes from the outside of here over to the center of that hole is based off the 65 to 79 chassis, and the hole spacing is the same, so that I don't have to have a bunch of separate plates for the top. I could have just one that fits all the trucks. So because I could move the holes over a little bit on this if I wanted to and make those washers work, but then I'd have to have separate plates. So easier to just get smaller washers, keep everything the same. And some of you guys said, what do you mean 65 to 79 chassis? 65 to 79 chassis over there in the yard? Yeah, I know 65 and 79 are not the same. 3 different body styles there. Okay, 65 and 66 are part of the 61 to 66 body style, which I've got 2 right over there. 64 to 65. I've got a 66 in the backyard. But the 61 to 64 frame is sort of like this, and it had a single straight axle, and the frame tapers up on the bottom like that. 65 went to the 6 holes, as I showed you in some other videos, and the 65, 66 had those same holes, which matched this pattern, except for these are a little further down. They're supposed to be, they're up here. And then the 67 to 72, which is called a bump side, those have the same 6 holes, and the 73 to 79, which is referred to as a dent side, have the same 6 holes. Now, I prefer to call them the year range they are, 60, 70, 72, 73, 79. I don't like to call them dent side or bump side, but hey, whatever. It works. So let me go ahead and get the other mount in here, and we'll set this frame center section, crossmember center section in. I'll have to go grab some longer bolts too. Got a little bit of an issue right there. I don't know how that hole came to be off, but the other ones line up. I'll have to fix that. I brought out some bolts. These are 1/2 by 6. These are just some bolts I use for prototyping. Bolts are kind of expensive, so I try not to keep my regular bolts from my prototyping bolts. I mean, I actually try to keep them separate. These aren't, I don't think I have anything that I sell that uses a 6-inch bolt, but they're good for prototyping stuff. And I'm just going to speak to you today about bolts. You may have seen these sitting here. That's a 5/8 by, looks like about 5-inch bolt, and that's a 9/16, about 4-inch bolt. Okay. This goes with that and that. Okay, now that basically goes right there. You got a slotted hole there and a slotted hole on the other side. and you got one on the other side of this thing. And basically, for you guys that don't have any experience with the Crown Vic, the bolt hole is slotted, and that's how you get your adjustment, caster camber adjustment for your control arms from the factory. Because as you can see, the uppers are mounted solid to that, and there's no adjustment in that upper arm. So there's all of it right there. And if you can't get your caster camber out of that, then you're stuck with some camber that you don't want. Now, if you notice, this hole is off to one side, this slotted hole. Okay, so aftermarket people like myself make a washer for that. Okay, all the way to one side, it fits it, right? But you can rotate it to the other side, like so. It doesn't fit. Okay, but what you can do is you can mark that with a Sharpie, and you can ream that across there and get more adjustment. Okay, the other side's the same way, and I've got some pictures of this on my website on the control arm page. Okay, that's the big side. Now the other side's got a smaller slotted hole that fits this. Okay, you see the difference in these. Okay, and as you can tell, the bolt head fits in that right there. Let me pick that up. Okay, so basically that goes in from the other side and holds the head of that bolt. Okay, and what you can do is, once you get it in there, you can turn it with a wrench, because there's enough of the head sticking out to adjust your caster camber through the bottom. Now, it still kind of sucks having to adjust all that from the bottom under the car or the truck, rather than do it from the top. So on mine, I did exactly the opposite. Okay, the lower's mounted solid, and the upper is the one that's the slotted hole. That's why we had the slotted holes in there. You see those? You see that cam loop, that little loop inside there is what fits over this. Okay, that's what I use these for. Okay, this is a 9/16, and the reason I use a 9/16 is because the factory arms use a 14mm bolt. Goes through that hole right there. It's 14mm. So somebody's using factory arms on my crossmember, they can do it with that bolt right there. It's in the hole. It's kind of tight, but this hole's all rusty on this one. So anyways, let me go ahead and get this crossmember test fit in here, and then we'll stop and see what we got. Okay, there we go. Just sitting in there. Some long bolts stuck through it. Now I don't know if I'm gonna have to ream those or not. I may have to. I need to adjust the holes down on those. I made the holes kind of slotted on those way back when, but I need to move the holes down a little bit and move the top edge up a little bit in the drawing. I didn't put the spacers in yet because I wanted to see what I'm going to need for spacers. Obviously you can see some light through there, but not on this side. So, and that's quite a bit of gap. That's almost a quarter. So my 2 1/8" spacers should fit. Once I make these inside plates, instead of have 2-inch crush sleeves, I'll have 2 1/8. That'll bring that in to where this is 29 inches or 29 1/16, basically what the crossmember is to start with. Okay, so that is how that fits. Okay, and those motor mounts are the same distance apart and the same height off the bottom as on this factory Crown Vic crossmember, except that mine have a threaded hole down the sides, have big threaded nut, weld on threaded nut inside there, and inside here in the very center. It's not adjustable. But same distance apart, so any aftermarket mounts, motor mounts that are made for the aluminum crossmember will fit my crossmembers. We specifically recommend Outcast. Everything that I've seen that Kyle does is top notch, so we recommend Kyle Howard's Outcast motor mounts for whatever motor you're putting in there. Yes, he even makes them for LS, you guys. They're doing LS. So now that I know this fits, I have to do some reaming on a couple of these holes. But that's okay. I'll put holes in the, put bolts through whatever holes line up first. And then I'll start reaming them as I put them in when it's time to put it in for the final time. So I'm going to finish welding this up probably later today. I've got some control arms to build today, but if I don't do this today, tomorrow's Saturday, first thing I'll do is weld this thing up in the morning while I'm making the control arms. As we talked about, the only thing I don't have is that rear arm mount yet. But if I bring that frame over here and put it on this table completely level, then I can measure from these two holes right there in the top, that one and that one. I can measure straight back on that other frame out there and down to the holes on the side of the frame, so that my J-shaped mount that I use on the 65 to 79 chassis fits on here. But what I may need to do is make a plate, different plate to go to these bolts, because I don't want to add no more crush sleeves. Be better if we could go to these holes right that are existing here. Just requires a different plate. I'll cut one, drill one, and make I'll make one from scratch, and then I'll draw it in CAD and get it laser cut for the production version of this. Yes, we had a sale last weekend, July the 4th weekend, and I sold, I think, at least one of these, sometime maybe two. So, and I'm also making cross members this weekend. This is number one of the batch. Probably going to make a batch of at least 7, probably 10 of these this weekend. Now this will be the only one that's got dismount like this until the new laser cut ones come in. There was only 2 of these when I ordered them because I wanted to make sure they fit. They do fit. So I just ordered some more sometime this week. I don't know what day they'll be here, but they'll be here before I get to them, so it's no big deal. And the problem I have here with this hole, that's probably because I measured it and then marked it instead of using a bracket, one of these brackets, to bring over here and measure it. So that'll resolve itself in the production version. So I'm not too worried about that. And I'll have to make some crush tubes for the bottom of this. I'd like to get this thing bolted up and tighten up a couple of the holes in, like the middle 2 holes, or maybe the middle 2 and top 2, and see what my distance is where that crush sleeve goes inside the back of there, in between there, right there in the bottom, before I make those crush sleeves. And then once I do, I'll cut a whole bunch of them. So that's about all I can do for now, guys, and hope you learned something. If you didn't, hell, ask me some questions, man. Like I said, the videos are going to get better. Just got to learn how to do the software. Till then, peace.